What is cracking, everybody? We are getting to Tank Davis versus Ryan Garcia. What are we doing on this Friday night? I hope we're having a good one. Wow, I can't believe we're finally here. I mean, two boxers finally in their prime, getting into the ring and actually going to put on a performance at the right time. This is just an unbelievable thing for boxing, at the fact that Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia are going to be meeting each other in the ring this early in their career. And you want to know what the best part is that Ryan Garcia has been asking for this fight for 2 years. And I think that that's the best part about it. But what I'm really liking as well is how confident both boxers are going into this, given the fact that there has been some antics with the rehydration clause, and then the fact that Davis is allowed a rematch if he loses, but Garcia isn't. You know, those are usually signs of someone who may be a little bit concerned. And it seems as if maybe Davis is a little bit concerned about Garcia. But like I said on my previous podcast, I also do think at the same time that it's the people behind the scenes that are advising Tank that kind of set these stipulations and then ran it by him. And to him, as long as it favors him, he's obviously going to run it out that way and go with it. So that makes sense to me. And on the flip side, though, Garcia, when he's going on these podcasts, you know, Hot Boxing with Mike Tyson and interviews with Ariel Helwani, et cetera, and then a ton of them, the confidence is just radiating in such a way. It's unbelievable. And it's like, you know, I felt like when the fight wasn't actually happening, it was easy to think that a lot of that bravado and confidence and talking was a little bit of a, let's just say, a mask. But when you really look at it now, when my guy, DC, what's Gucci? You know, when you really look at it, though, now that the fight is actually happening, the tune that Ryan Garcia is singing is, you know, still a very confident one and almost a way more believable one, due to the fact that not only are the two of them getting in the ring, but our eyes are on them as an audience. The analysts are breaking down the fights. And let's just say it's not so much of a landslide for Gervonta Tank Davis. I think a lot of people are very, very confident in what Ryan Garcia could bring to the table, due to the fact that he's the longer fighter. He's got a bigger reach. You know, he's got a lightning fast left hook. He's probably the faster fighter of the two, and he's the bigger fighter with the reach. So he does have some attributes there. But at the same time, I mean, people always post for Tank Davis as like a knockout artist, but like realistically, even against Rolly Romero, a guy that I think realistically took a fight against Tank a little bit too early, I kind of felt like he downloaded the data on Rolly, took his time with it, and then knocked him out at the perfect time. He's not really someone who just bum rushes in and tries to get it done quick. So, you know, I think that Tank Davis being patient in this fight is definitely going to be something that's there. And I think that Ryan Garcia is going to be patient as well. I don't think that he's going to look to be on the offensive in the first few rounds. I actually think he's going to look to counterpunch more, but there's not necessarily going to be much there for him, due to the fact that, you know, Tank Davis is not really going to be necessarily coming out the gate firing. I think he's going to plot and plot and plot. But, you know, we've seen the likes of Canelo Alvarez be very, very complimentary of Ryan Garcia's speed and his left hook, and due to the fact that he's the longer, rangier fighter. Even though the camp didn't work out between the two, you know, the old story was Ryan Garcia got invited by Eddie Reynoso Jr. and Canelo Alvarez, and essentially, you know, they didn't seem to see that Ryan was meeting their expectations. They probably put in really great work together and both benefited from it in the small run, we'll say, but in the long run, it didn't seem to work out, and it doesn't really seem to be an issue because Ryan Garcia is now going to be fighting, you know, Tank Davis tomorrow night. So that's pretty crazy right there. Got to think too, though, like a lot of people are not really talking enough about, I find as of lately, of how much Ryan Garcia leaves his chin up in the air. You know, he is the faster fighter, and he does like to fight taller and long, which is why he leaves his chin up in the air, and he relies on those lightning fast skills to kind of, you know, have the punch land before he has to worry about the punch landing on him. But when you're fighting a smaller package in Gervonta Davis, who's a boxer who actually does fight in an even smaller manner, he doesn't try to make himself taller due to the fact that he's undersized. He actually likes to stay right underneath your chin, keep his head in your chest, and fire away and find that left uppercut. So That's why I think that that'll pose for some difficulties. I did watch a little bit of footage of Ryan Garcia moving around with Canelo Alvarez. Nothing to really write home about due to the fact that there's a weight discrepancy, and Canelo is far more superior as one of the pound for pound best boxers in the world. But on the flip side, it's like Canelo was basically backing up Garcia into the ropes the entire time, making him trying to work on the inside. And it kind of got me thinking that Ryan Garcia is definitely going to want to keep this fight at range with Tank and try to time him with that left hook as he's moving in. Because if he doesn't and he lets Tank Davis get underneath Garcia's chin, be able to, slip and roll and start landing those uppercuts and start landing to the body, et cetera, to start lowering the hands of Garcia, man, is he going to find a home for that left hand? And that's something that we're not talking about also. Gervonta Davis is a southpaw, and Ryan Garcia is an orthodox fighter, which does mean, in fact, that left hook, will be challenged by the lead hand and the jab of Gervonta Davis. And everybody knows that that a straight jab will get there a lot faster than any hooks. We got Jeremy Wilson joining us from Fight Bananas. He's actually on site for the Gervonta Davis Ryan Garcia fight. So this should be interesting to have him there because he's been at the media day. He was at the weigh-ins. He's kind of feeling the momentum, and he gets it done. There we go. I like that little drizzy from my girl. Taking care of my son. So, it's just been really, really cool to see what's been happening with the fact that boxing is getting this fight so early. And Ryan Garcia was saying that he hopes that a lot of people actually do spend their hard-earned money to pay for this pay-per-view, because that will show up in how much the fighters will make in the aftermath of the event. And, that will also propel and encourage fighters to go and take these big fights earlier due to the fact that the guapo is actually there because people are buying it. And I agree with that sentiment. I completely agree with that sentiment. Look, I'll be real with you. Maybe I was thinking of getting it the freeway. I think I'm going to dip into my pocket now. It's part of the game. I do it all the time for the UFC. And, Josh, that is absolutely the beauty of it. And thanks for joining us, because I know you're always tuning in. That's my guy right here. I know that's exactly what it is that Ryan Garcia brings a different market and a different opportunity for fans to tune into boxing, similar to the Creator Clash thing, but on a way better, more professional and the real deal Holyfield level. And you get guys like Josh who, graduated in amateur wrestling, having a good amateur wrestling career in high school or whatever, and watches the UFC, and he doesn't really watch much boxing. But then you get a guy like Ryan Garcia here who's younger, knows the social media game, and kind of came up in the same generation. You bet your ass those people are going to be tuning in. And let me tell you something, fellas, if there was one night that your girl actually wanted to tune in, or you wanted to have a little date night for a fight, it's a Ryan Garcia fight. It's probably the only fight that a girl wants to sit with you and actually watch it. So I got my man Jeremy joining us. He's on the phone right now with the AirPods, and let's get it cracking. What's going on, baby? So just turn your audio on, Jeremy, and we'll get it cracking. But, we got Jeremy here right now from Fight Bananas. He's on site, ready to go, ready to cover the fight and get it popping. Until then, I'm going to keep it rolling until he fixes the audio. And like I said, man, that is the absolute beauty of this fight, is due to the fact that people are actually going to tune into this because Ryan Garcia is bringing a different light on this. And, even in the MMA community, we don't necessarily always cover boxing events, but this is one of those fights that you absolutely cannot want to cover.
Yeah. Audio good?
What's going on, baby?
How's it going, man? How's it going?
Very good, very good. Thank you for joining us. And Jeremy, why don't you break it down for us? How's it going at the fight, being on site? How was the media day? How was the weigh-ins? How's the energy? Break it down for us, baby.
Honestly, hey, Jared Wilson here from Fight Bananas. Obviously, everything's fucking insane, man. Sorry to swear, I don't know your channel, but the energy in Vegas, for me, this is the biggest boxing fight of the year. Like, the biggest boxing fight of the year, Garcia versus Tank Davis. The energy in Vegas is insane. Celebrities around, people around, and then obviously there's a UFC going on too, a good UFC card. So for me, this is the best energy I've had in Vegas in a year and a half, at least. Like,
that's amazing. And let me ask you something. What is the difference in the energy at a professional boxing event versus an MMA one, especially on the media side of things first, and then the overall promotion and the glitz and glamour and the absolute feel of it? Which one feels like a lot more bigger and important?
Yeah, it's just like boxing. It's an entity, you know. It's like it doesn't compete with MMA on a full spectrum year round. Event to event, they don't compete. But when they have the big events like tonight, right now, like it's just like any kind of Mayweather fights, De La Hoya back in the day, it's just a different entity. For me, it's just nothing I've ever felt as a journalist. I've only covered 7 events live before, and for me, this is the biggest one ever by far. But just because Showtime is just showing off, you know what I mean? It's like, and then have Golden Boy back on one side, Tank's crew back on the other side. Money's just coming. It's Vegas. It's fun, man. It's a good energy. It's good vibe. Good people. And literally at the weigh-ins there was literally 80,000 people. Like
Seriously.
80,000. They had 7 blocks backed off. Like I posted from Showtime's angle. Like they're back. It looked like a Coachella festival, bro. Like
Wow.
Coachella festival the other way. Like
Wow. And one thing is too, is like if Gervonta Davis was fighting the likes of like a Canelo Alvarez with a real fan backing from Mexico, you could believe why there'd be 100,000 people there. But Ryan Garcia, yes, he identifies as Mexican American, but he's not even really speaking Spanish. And I don't think that he necessarily identifies completely with just that community. I think he's just a global powerhouse in terms of that. I completely get why there was 80,000 people there. And I agree with you that boxing is a bit different. It just always seems like we're watching a bit of history in a different way. And I hate to bring Jake Paul into this, but when Jake was fighting in Showtime fights, I felt that it was the only time that his career felt legitimate. And I felt that every time he fought outside of a promotion of Showtime, they just weren't able to portray him in a light where we felt like we could actually take this seriously. And like you said, Showtime is showing off. And I mean, listen, the All Accesses with 2 back-to-back 30-minute episodes. I mean, with Benavidez and Plant, there was a huge storyline there. We only got 1 episode. We could have had 7 of them. So I was happy at least that we got a couple of them with Gervonta and Ryan Garcia. And I just wanted to ask you, Jeremy, have you been seeing any of the interviews that Ryan has been doing leading up, on the Hot Boxing Show or recently with Ariel Helwani?
I watched them all.
Dude, like now that the fight is actually here and signed, doesn't it feel like the confidence almost seems a lot more believable now? Because now we're getting close.
It definitely does 100%. Like I'm a big Tank fan, and I'm not gonna say I've never been a Ryan hater, but I just didn't know how real he was in a sense, right? I didn't know about who he's competed against, et cetera, et cetera. I always thought Tank had more of a value in that sense. But seeing Ryan's confidence all week, like you said, it's insane, man. It's insane. And now anything combat sports is a battle of the mental mind. So it's like who's actually talking the talk and walking to the walk right now? Like I do believe, like I predict Tank, but I do believe Ryan's walking the walk. And if anyone's gonna beat Tank, it's gonna be Ryan Garcia.
I agree with you there. Let me ask you something. What do you think about the whole Bernard Hopkins thing getting in the middle at the weigh-ins? Kind of seemed like a little bit of an opportunity to shine, which I didn't really think was a very Bernard Hopkins-esque move. I thought that the trash talk was clean and Ryan was cool with it the whole time. I didn't really understand what the notion was for him to get in between it.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Like for me, like Hopkins is an OG and a legend. You know what I mean? The fights he had at middleweight in the 80s, it's like, it was off guard for me. So like I said, I don't even know what to take of it because it was just so not normal in a sense. Like lack of a better word, like it wasn't normal to me. So it was like, oh, Hopkins, like, yo, what? You're 55 plus right now, like coming off in the middle of the game, media wise. It's like you didn't even do that your whole career when you fought. Why?
I don't care about the age thing. 55, a fighter is always a fighter until they're in the ground and even after that. But for me, it just seemed uncharacteristic because, this is a guy who's gotten into some of the best actual verbal arguments in the game. The famous lines against the great Joe Calzaghe. And then, we're kind of having that jibber jabber between the two of them. And then him getting in the middle of that, felt it was a little bit uncharacteristic. And I just always hate it when, you know, external factors take a little bit of shine out of the actual moment that was happening. And I felt that Garcia needed every moment as possible to have Gervonta's attention, because it's the last time they go
True.
face to face with each other, especially with a sunken in version of Gervonta Davis, because he is not one of the most handsome fellas when he gets off of that scale.
Yeah, true trust. It was, like I said, it was very uncharacteristic. And for me, it almost seemed, I hate to say the word scripted. You know, it's like, I hate to say that word, I hate to use that word scripted, but it almost screams scripted because it was so uncharacteristic. It's like, it's a weird one. And for me, it's like, hey, but I'm here for the fight. I love it. I love the energy. And that's all that matters in the long term.
Yes, definitely. That is all that matters. Let me ask you something. Since you are there, is there any buzz about the undercard? Because I got to be real with you. I
No.
just can't seem to understand why, when you have one of the biggest fights in history, when fighters are actually fighting each other in their prime, what is so wrong with having a little bit more of an undercard here? I mean, mixed martial arts has
Yeah,
literally built
of
their
course.
foundation on having almost better fights on the prelims than the friggin' main cards.
Of
And you
course.
go to boxing, and it's like, aside from, you know, I don't know if you follow it or you're particular with it, but the whole creator clash event that happens like once a year with the influencer boxers, dude, they're there in Tampa Bay, Florida at 6 p.m. and they get out of there about 1:30 in the morning, and they are on and cracking the entire night. I don't care if it's Kim Kardashian, Marky Mark, you know, P. Diddy, whatever the case may be. That place is only packed out at like the 6th fucking round of the main event, and it drives
Yeah.
me nuts.
Yeah, honestly, there's no buzz about the co-main events or the undercard at all. Like, I'll talk to other journalists and other pages. Like, for me, like, as you know, I mostly cover MMA. I'm a big fan of boxing, but I mostly dabble into MMA. And for me, I am not intrigued at all about undercards. Even though I was talking to my page, I don't want to say, but the pages I write for, I was like, oh, do you want me to cover the undercards? They weren't intrigued, you know, like, they weren't intrigued. Like, oh, I didn't need to post reels or nothing like that from the undercard fights. They didn't care.
Which I'm a little bit shocked about, to be, oh, for the undercard, you mean?
No, well, even the main card. Sorry,
You
like,
see, I'm a little bit shocked about that, because I think that, like I was saying before you jumped into the stream, Ryan Garcia is able to bring in a fandom that a lot of boxers are not able to do, which is very mainstream and esque, which is why I
yeah,
understand with a very niche website like Fight Bananas for MMA specifically why they don't want to cover it. But at the same time, you got to think to yourself, like, you know, I was saying before, Jeremy, like, Ryan Garcia is one of those fighters that, like, more girls know about than guys, or more girls are crazy about than guys. If there's one fighter that a girl
true.
actually wants to go on a date with you and watch a fight of, it's Ryan Garcia. So I don't know. I think that he is always very valuable in all realms to cover. And you're going to see that major outlets are going to cover him, and you're going to see he's going to go all over TikTok and this and that. And, like, dude, you best believe that if this fight ends in an emphatic knockout on either side, it might break social media, because Ryan Garcia is a popular guy. But I think with that popularity, he's got that baby face and a little bit of that, you know, like a little bit of that Justin Bieber-esque swagger that it's like kind
Of
of hard
course.
to maybe tell if you could buy into it or not. Dude, he knocks out Tank Davis. A lot of folks got to, you know, keep their mouth shut.
Oh, if Brian Garcia knocks out Tank Davis, that's 20 million hits in 5 minutes tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like, that's 20 million hits in 5 minutes tomorrow, and all of a sudden his followers go from 7 million to 20 million. He's
Yeah.
on ESPN. He's on everything. You know what I mean? He's already that guy, and if he can do that, oh, he will change boxing. Boxing needs Brian Garcia to knock him out. Respectfully, like.
No, I definitely agree with you there. And let me ask you a question, Jeremy. What do you think are the keys to victory for Gervonta Davis? Like, what do you think he's got to do to win the fight?
I think he's just gonna do his own game. He's gonna be patient. Can't come over there just looking to knock out Ryan with all the trash talk. Can't come over looking for the knockout Ryan, but comes in there, utilizes that little short hook, and keeps him with the jab, short hook. But I know Ryan's a taller guy and has a longer reach, but Tank hasn't had problems with that ever. You mean, look at his last 3 fights, not the last one before that, but 2 fights ago, he fought a guy that was 4 inches taller than him, and it wasn't a problem. But for me, the only thing that I worry about with Ryan is so fast. You know what I mean? It's like we see all these clips on social media, et cetera, et cetera. He has so much popularity that we see him. You know what I mean? We see him. And he's so fast. And it's like, if there's anyone who's ever to catch Tank, it's Ryan.
You're right about that. And another thing, too, is, the thing that could absolutely be a detriment to Ryan Garcia is Tank fighting on the inside. It could also be a positive thing because as Tank is on the way in with a low base, that left hook could really land to the temple
Oh,
in the sweet spot. So it's a tough one there, man. But, the whole Southpaw versus Orthodox thing is going to be interesting, too. I think that Tank is going to fight the lead hand of Garcia a little bit, just to nullify the fact that he won't be able to really sit down and twist his hips on those lead left hooks, and he'll have to slap them more at range due to the fact that Tank is kind of reaching with that jab. I think that
yeah,
that's
yeah.
going to be a constant thing. But man, you got to believe, I really think that Tank is going to come out, very patient and polished to try to really download the
Of course.
data of Ryan Garcia. And I think that Garcia is not going to come out guns a-blazing and is going to actually look to wait for Tank to turn it up to try to catch him with that left hook to really set the tone on how ready and willing Garcia is to put Tank to the mat.
Yeah, like you said, it's like that patience for Tank will have to what he has to do, but like over that course of time, I feel like that little hook will come just from that patience and what. But it's such a crazy fight, man. It's the craziest fight in my mind because, like you said, like I also see Garcia just being patient, like you said, and
Yes.
being able to capitalize, right? So it's like my money is on Tank, but my heart and my mind is still thinking Ryan. So it's like it's the weirdest fight in boxing because I'm pretty confident in boxing all the time because they're usually lopsided fights. That's what boxing is. But this fight it's 50-50 in my mind with the favor going to Tank.
But let me ask you a question. Is it so prevalent in your mind that Ryan Garcia could shock the world because Ryan Garcia has that Conor McGregor-esque to him where he just knows how to convince us with his promo cutting and his confidence in his marketability? Or has he really convinced us with his resume in the ring and with his skill set that he could beat Tank Davis?
I think both, to be honest, his skill set, even his resume is not the same as Tank, but his resume is still his resume. He still has 23 victories with X amount of knockouts, 21, I think it is. He's renowned for that. He comes to fights. He's already had so much attention 8 fights ago. You know what I mean? Like 8 fights ago, you still count up, had all this clout. Everyone was putting this, he's not fighting the best, blah, 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 whatever. Ryan Garcia already has all that attention and knows how to deal with it. And like you said, that Conor McGregor factor for me is, I truly believe it because it's like if Garcia is actually locked in and is mentally training, mentally believing, working with people that actually work with the mind, you know what I mean? Then yeah, I know the sky's the limit because he already knows he's a champion. So it's like that's just a different story. Like
that is a different story, and you are right about that. Absolutely, it'll be really interesting to see if he's going to be able to put Tank Davis to the canvas. That'll be friggin' crazy if that happens. He'll blow the roof off of the place, and he's already a superstar in the making. And like you said, he was already way popular a couple of fights ago. Think about it. That sparring
there's
session.
more Tank fans in Vegas. Sorry to cut you off.
There's what?
More Tank fans in Vegas right now.
But I believe that. I do believe that, and I'll tell you why. Ryan Garcia's fans are not big enough boxing fans where they're going to go and travel to his fight.
Yeah. No, man. Social media fans.
They're social media fans. They're very popular on there, exactly. And I also think, too, that because Tank does have good roots in Vegas because of the Mayweather cap, etc., the whole crew and the whole party's rolling through, and that makes sense to me. I think that the stars, though, are going to come out in favor of Ryan Garcia, which is going to be a little bit of a different thing. But I just wanted to add to what you said before in the sense of dude, Ryan Garcia versus Rolly Romero in that sparring session at the Mayweather gym is one of the most popular clips. I mean, it's more popular than most fights that we've seen in professional boxing, which makes it so interesting because even if Ryan loses, he could go out and fight Rolly. He could go out and fight Devin Haney down the line. He could go down all of these different routes. So he's going to be winning no matter what. Which I think is going to be really, really great. And what's crazy is like in the UFC, that 130 to 140 pound range is absolutely bananas with the wealth of talent that is in there. All of these boxers just need to be willing to go up or down a few pounds, or let their opponent be willing to go up and down a few pounds. And holy crap, do we have some blockbusters if these guys start signing the dotted line. And that's what I loved about what Garcia said, in saying that if everybody does chip in and buy this event, it will encourage fighters to actually get in there and fight other boxers in their prime, because the pay-per-view points are paying off for themselves.
Yeah, to go to that point, like I think this is a win-win for boxing right now. This fight, this matchup between these two guys, Garcia and Davis, it's a win-win for boxing because boxing needs it. Just like you said, like having that confidence and having that to be able to influence other fighters to take fights out of their weight class. Boxing needs that. I mean, like right now, whoever wins this fight is the biggest fight in boxing right now in my mind. You know what I mean? Like obviously Jake Paul is Jake Paul, but like Jake Paul's not skilled. Canelo is the best, most popular in a sense in the world, but like he's on his end of his career, which he's still unreal, but he's still, I think he's borderline. He's coming down. He's not elevating no more.
I don't know about. I don't know if he's coming down. I don't know if he's coming down. Why?
I think he's peaked though.
It's very, very possible. You have to think about it too, though, where he's gotten a little bit crazy in moving around different weight classes.
True.
And also when you get really rich, it's hard to kind of stay down in that weight class that makes you have to restrict yourselves in the finer things of life. I mean, we're seeing in Conor McGregor how he can't even make 55. It's kind of similar how Canelo can't make 160 and he has to fight at 68 or 174. The real thing is that he's fighting John Ryder, which is an absolute dust show of a fight. And I think that the only problem with this is if Canelo doesn't put him away and plays to the level of Ryder, it's going to kind of hurt his stock and feed into actually what you're saying. And I agree with you, but the biggest story here is that, dude, I don't want to segue too much from Tank and Davis, but there's a ability that Dimitri Bivol will fight Canelo Alvarez and then Arthur Beterbiev back to back, which has to be one of the craziest back-to-back resumes in boxing history.
That'd be nice. Like I said, don't want to go away from this fight, but that would be unreal for boxing. Again, boxing's kind of on the comeback. You know, it's on a rocky comeback in a little bit, in a sense. Like for the last 10 years, there's no been, besides Canelo and Mayweather dying out, there's been no true stars. I feel like in the next 5 years, we're going to get many superstars again. We're going to get superstars in boxing again that we've been lacking. We've been wanting forever. You know what I mean? It's like, even Tyson Fury, as big as he is, would you call him a superstar or no?
Would I call Tyson Fury a superstar? I would, because he sold out a stadium of 90,000.
Hey, good point.
That's why I call him a superstar, and I think that in a lot of venues he could do very, very well. I like what Sean said here, that it's fun to get hyped over a boxing match again. It is going to be tough for Garcia, but yeah, he might have that McGregor factor, but let's be real here. He ain't talking as much shit and getting in the head of Tank as much as McGregor did to Aldo. So it is a little bit different there, but I do have to say that there's a different aura and confidence to Ryan Garcia that I truly think is a lot more believable than a couple of years ago, due to the fact that this fight is actually happening. But call me crazy here, but I don't think that getting knocked down in the third round from Luke Campbell and showing that resiliency, plus the knockouts that he's shown us in his career, is necessarily enough of a resume to show us that he's ready to beat Tank Davis.
So what's your prediction then? Sorry, Adam.
I don't know. I don't really like to give predictions these days, but I'm siding with Tank for sure.
Yeah, that's kind of right. Like I said, I'm a Tank bias, but like after seeing Ryan all week this week and seeing his confidence, seeing his energy, it's hard. You know, it's like, I'm like, damn, like this guy.
And like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm kind of at the point where it's like all you need to do is break down and give great analysis and show the hype and the passion about the fights and create the storylines. And unless you're a betting channel, I don't really see how there's much interest in always having to predict who's going to win or lose, because a fight could go a completely different way. And then another thing too is like, if you want to, have that analyst relationship, but then try to interview some of these guys, you start picking against them, they start finding out. it's like a little bit sketch too, but it happens all the
Mhm.
time. But I don't know. I just kind of think like fights come and go all the time, and it's like you always have to pick who wins. It gets a little bit old. But let me ask you, Jeremy, how's the overall energy in Las Vegas right now? I mean, it's April. It's got to be a good time to be there. And like I asked you previously before, just the overall feel in a boxing fight versus an MMA one. Would you say that the energy is more or less the same, or like you said, Showtime just does it in a way that just makes it that much more spectacular?
Like obviously Vegas is UFC city, but this city was created from boxing. You know what I mean? The city was created and started from boxing. So
Yeah.
right now, obviously, we have Curtis Blades fighting Pavlich in a great fight, but no one's talking about that fight in Vegas right now. You know what I mean? It's not even on the radar. All the energy in Vegas is boxing, and I'm a bigger MMA fan per se, but I'm respect any sport in general, and boxing has a history, and that's why you just have to love and respect boxing so much because of that history. And so it's like being here right now, being around this energy, it's just a part of history. It's like
Right.
I'm here. I'm like, oh, I think of Tyson, I think of Holyfield, I think of fucking Ali. It's just like Vegas is just that boxing entity. And as a combat sports fan and MMA diehard, MMA was created because of boxing in a sense. And I mean, MMA was able to succeed because of boxing. So without boxing, we'd be nothing. And so I'll always give love back to it. And I do think, like I said, this is win-win for boxing because boxing's going to be on the radar again. No matter what happens in this fight, if Tank wins or Ryan wins, boxing's on the radar on an exponential level.
And you could attest to this, that when you get the ability to cover events like this, it almost makes you think to yourself like, man, I got to cover more boxing. Like this is
Oh,
unbelievable, But then the problem is then like 3 weeks go by and you're like, I don't give a shit about any of these fights, and that's what
that's
makes it
it.
complicated too. But I got to be real with you. Sometimes I do find myself feeling like that also in the UFC as well, especially with some of these Apex cards.
Oh,
That because of the ESPN deal, they have to put out so many
I hate
fights
Apex.
that they need to beef up the roster and stuff like that. I truly just wish that we would be able to slim down the roster. And what I found actually interesting is that the WWE is apparently has gotten word and advice from Endeavor that they have to severely cut their roster and
Nice.
kind of hold it, I don't know, something to a cap of 50 million. I don't know how that actually even makes sense, because I'm sure Roman Reigns alone makes 50 million. But I wonder if eventually we do see the UFC kind of cutting down their roster again, because like, listen, I love the Bill Algeo fight and the versus Brown, but like, I got to be real with you, 17-9, 17-10. I feel like you rewind the clock like 6, 7, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, and you're not seeing guys with that record in the octagon, unless they were guys that have like came into the UFC with like a sick record and then lost a few fights, but they've honed that those grounds there.
Yeah. Just like even like Carlos Condit and something like that. Carlos Condit's been around forever, and then he's had a couple losses, etc., and still getting those main card slots for whatever reason, right? For his history.
100%. And what's your thoughts on the Sergey Pavlich fight versus Curtis Blades?
Bro, I'm a big Curtis Blades fan. I think he's one of the most underrated heavyweights. I think Pavlich is a killer, etc., etc., etc. I will say that with a period at the end of all those. But I think Blades is underrated, man. Blades, he got caught by Derek Lewis with that uppercut, but he was winning that fight before that, and
Right.
he has the best wrestling in the division by far, if not Jones, because you never know about Jones. Jones is a freak, right? Jones is a freak, so you never know.
Yeah.
But like in my mind, Curtis Blades has the best pure wrestling that we've seen from a heavyweight. He knows how to dictate the pace with that wrestling. Control it. His boxing is decent. It's not great, but it's decent enough to. So I think Blades controls it, and he's able to win this fight easily.
Yeah, you see, the biggest thing here is like Curtis Blades has a bit of that Brock Lesnar to him, where all he needs to do is get a hold of you in the wrestling, and then things will start to slide his way. But similar to a Brock Lesnar, he doesn't really like to necessarily get hit, and he doesn't like to sit there and slug it out. So if Pavlich comes out hard and fast, which
True.
he most probably will, and he lands, it'll be a quick night for Pavlich. But at the same time, if Pavlich knows that if he comes out ready to go and has that takedown thought in the back of his mind and is tentative with his striking, that is going to eat Pavlich alive, because one of the worst things that you could do when you're used to being a fast starter is trying to slow yourself down in there. You know what I'm saying? By trying to pull the reins back on yourself, it's almost as exhausting. You know, when the body is ready to sprint and you're running in a mere jog, you almost feel your heart rate climbing even more because you're really pulling the reins on yourself. So I think that Pavlich is going to come out hard and fast, and it's going to be up to Curtis Blaydes to have good defense and try to slow down the fight with his boxing. But with his wrestling and his cage wrestling and his clinch. But, you know, you best believe he better be ready to actually have some boxing defense to be able to get out of the way of some of those lunchbox punches.
For sure. Like I said, it's a great fight for the heavyweight division right now, and a lot of implications because that title shots is near and far between with who's contenders right now. You know what I mean? After Stipe and John Jones, this is probably a clear contender fight in a sense. Like,
clear contender fight, exactly. You know, we saw that UFC is going back to London in June or July the 22nd. You got to think that Tom Aspinall is going to be in the main event. Is he going to be in the co-main event against Tai Tuivasa, or do you think that it would be against Ciryl Gane? I lean more towards Tai Tuivasa because it's a good warm-up fight for Aspinall since he's been off due to the ACL tear, and I just don't see him wanting to get right back in there with a guy like Gane, who's, you know, a title contender if he's off an injury.
Yeah, I think Tuivasa will get that title shot or get that fight against Aspinall for sure too, because I think Gane just coming off that loss and how easy and quick it was against Jones, he's going to take his time right now. Like, he already is an elite striker. We already know he's maybe one of the best strikers in the heavyweight division, right? So now he's going to work on that wrestling a little bit and just continually, slowly build that right now, I think. And just for the mental confidence, like, he got beat in 30 seconds. Like, that's insane, right? Like, no one expected John Jones to win in 30. I thought Jones was going to win, but in 30 seconds, I would have never bet the world on that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's unbelievable, and it almost makes you really question like how qualified some of these UFC heavyweights are. And only in the heavyweight division would you have a guy who has literally no ground game whatsoever. You very rarely see that in any of the lower weight classes, but always the heavyweight division. If you're a dominant striker or you have a world-beating power, you'll be able to get away with it without good wrestling. And to me, that's a little bit crazy.
Well, even look at Ngannou. You know what I mean? Like, Ngannou is a killer, one of the craziest guys on the feet ever. And then obviously he lost to Derek Lewis in a wrestling match. And Derek Lewis is shit, right? So it's like Ngannou went back to the drawing board. He obviously started wrestling hard when he went to Extreme Couture. That was the difference when going from Paris to Paris Factory to Extreme Couture. He started working on his wrestling, and you can see it evolve. When he beat Ngannou, he was losing on the feet, arguably, and he had to wrestle him. He out-wrestled him. So it's...
He out-wrestled who?
Oh, Gane. Gane.
Yeah.
So
yeah, which was pretty shocking in itself. Josh says that Aspinall has been wanting to fight Marcin Tybura. Listen, I agree why he would want to fight Tybura, but like at the same time, like
Tybura's not a name enough.
Tai Tuivasa is going to sell a lot more pay-per-views than Tybura will, and he's a much more exciting fight. And Tybura, you know, he's not very exciting, and to be honest, he could sometimes make a fight gruesomely boring and squeak out the win and kill a contender. So I really hope that he doesn't want to fight him and that he should want to fight the likes of Tai Tuivasa, because let's be real here. They love their beers in London, and win or lose, Tai Tuivasa is still going to booze. So they should do absolutely that matchup right there. And I really think it's going to be an exciting one with Pavlich and Blaydes. I think it's going to go two ways. I think we actually might see a 5-round fight by Blaydes in a dominant victory due to a lot of wrestling and ground and pound, or I think it might be over real quick, which is, you know, is always a cliche breakdown, but that's usually what happens when it's striker versus wrestler.
And off topic, I know you're the host right now, but what's your take on?
Yeah, run whenever you want, Jeremy.
What's your take on Stott's Patchy Mix tomorrow night?
Oh my God, it's an unbelievable one, you know, because Patchy Mix is one of those guys who gives no hoots about the media, doesn't like the negative feedback from the fans and the armchair quarterbacks, you know, doesn't leave his DMs open, doesn't do a lot of interviews. And then you have a guy like Rafion Stotts that almost reminds me of John Dotson. the little vicious jack in the box who's well-rounded and very, very good everywhere. And Patchy Mix is a guy who's got a great wrestling base and has been improving in his striking as well. We saw in the Kyoji Horiguchi fight, we thought,
insane.
it was insane. It was a very one-sided fight. It was crazy. So it just makes for such an interesting matchup. And, Bellator having another fight in Stotts versus Patchy Mix. And then keep in mind that Sergio Pettis is waiting in the wings. Am I correct?
Yeah, he's fighting Pitbull.
But he's the champ, right? Sergio is the...
Yeah, he's fighting Pitbull, so it's almost like a little Final Four again now. He's fighting Pitbull.
Exactly. So it just makes it crazy how this is an interim fight, and it may as well be a world title fight. And, this is what I'm loving about Bellator lately.
Bellator's great.
You're looking at a lot of the champs and a lot of the top fives in all of the divisions, and you're like, yo, damn, man, there's a lot of these guys that I'd either match them up against some of the UFC's top five or champions, or I'd like to actually see them signed to the UFC.
Facts. Like I said, for me, last year was my first event ever covering an event live, was in Hawaii, and Patchy Mix fought Horiguchi on that card. And before there, talking to other journalists, I remember talking to Mike Bond and Chris Santiago for MMA, and we're like, oh yeah, Horiguchi for sure. Horiguchi's like a legend. I mean, you think about Horiguchi's resume, it was like, oh, Horiguchi fought everywhere. He was a killer. His only loss in that time frame was against Muddy Mouse, and Muddy Mouse is Muddy Mouse. So. And saying that though, watching that fight, Patchy dominated from start to finish. He killed him on the feet. He killed him on the ground. He out-wrestled him. He out-grappled him. He just destroyed him. And then from there on, every fight Patchy had, he just looked better and better and better and more calculated. His fights were shorter all of a sudden. And I'm a huge Stotts fan. I love Stotts. Had the best interviews with Stotts. But I do think Patchy's going to submit him in round one. Patchy's just on another level right now, and saying what we said about the UFC, I would love to see Patchy in the bantamweight division in the UFC. I would love to see how Patchy matches up with the top five in the UFC right now.
Damn, I mean, I don't know if Patchy's going to go out there and submit him right away. I think it's going to be that's
2-1.
Wow,
2-1.
Okay, 2 is a little different.
It's got to be when you're dry, bro. You got to be a little dry, right? Patchy's, and think about even when I watched Stotts against kill me right now. Who am I talking about? Oh, Juan Arquileta last year. Same card. Juan out-wrestled him for 2 rounds. And then Stotts got the knockout in the third off a head kick, off a break and then the head kick or whatever. But Juan out-wrestled him for 2 rounds, and I think Patchy has that wrestling ability to be able to do it. And then the fact that jiu-jitsu is it's insane right now. You know what I mean? In shout out to his girlfriend, wife, whatever Tatiana is. She's a future champ too in my mind. You know what I mean? She's a future champ too.
I agree with you there, Jeremy. I completely agree with you there. I think it's going to be an exciting matchup. And like I said, win or lose, Patchy Mix or Raufeon Stotts is going to be back up in there. You even have Magomedov, who's fantastic. You also have Juan Archuleta. There's just a wealth of fighters in the bantamweight division, plus Pettis and Pitbull. It's just crazy, and there are fighters that I think that Bellator could sign on the other circuits that could help beef up the division as well. So it's just crazy, there's a lot going on there. I love it. I like what Bellator does.
Are you watching Bellator right now? Is it on?
I'm watching it as we speak. I'm watching Sabatello.
That's what I was saying. Sabatello, yeah.
Yeah, Sabatello's fighting right now. It's the first round. Sabatello tried to get a takedown, and Breno stuffed it. And now Sabatello is forced to have to fight on the feet. And, I got to be honest with you, when Sabatello is forced to fight on the feet exclusively, you do see a lot of holes in his game. I got to be honest with you.
For sure.
And, in the eyes, sorry, Jeremy, in the eyes of the judges, the way that Sabatello so ruthlessly always needs to jump back to the wrestling, I got to be real with you. If I'm a judge, I'm kind of looking like he's not really too confident in his skill set, and that there could be some trouble.
Yeah, we'll see. Like I said, I'm not watching the fight yet. I'm going to turn on whenever we get out this interview. But yeah, I believe Sabatello has a lot of gas in his tank, etc. But I don't know how much he could take damage, how he handles losing and pressure, etc. Where his mind's at. He's a confident guy. We know how confident he is, but it's is it fake or what?
Is it fake? Yeah, that's always hard to tell. I mean, it's one of those things too, where you never want, somebody to have that fake confidence in that persona and then get in the octagon or the cage and not be able to back it up. Similar to when Colby Covington got his jaw broken against what's his name? Kamaru Usman. It wasn't really all sunshine and rainbows then, but that is kind of par for the course also with your character. The problem is that when you do it in Bellator and then you put together a string of losses, it's not really going to be a smooth sailing ship for you afterwards, because already you're in Bellator and you're losing. It's not really going to be good for your brand at all.
Oh, for sure, for sure. So like I said, time will tell tonight for Danny Sabatello. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. Jeremy, you have any closing topics or thoughts you want to bring up?
Honestly, just thank you for having me on your show tonight. I appreciate it. I respect you. I respect you as a journalist. It's fun to watch all your clips, all your interviews, all your just your podcast in general. You generally just talk. Not many people can come out there and just put their face out and just talk.
Yeah.
Without having a guest, etc.
Yeah.
And that's what I appreciate about you. You can come out there and just talk, and you don't need a guest, you don't need anything. You can just talk and speak your mind, and you're able to flow naturally. So for me, I love that. It makes me a fan of you, and I'm grateful to be a friend of you at the same time. But yeah, that's it. So thank you for having me on my show tonight.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Jeremy. You just made my night. I hope you have a good time tonight. Stay safe. Don't party too hard, because you got a big night ahead of you tomorrow with Tank Davis versus Ryan Garcia. Have a great time. They can find you at Jeremy Wilson _ and at Fight Bananas Official. And you're my guy. I remain the same with all of those sentiments too, and I appreciate you coming on.
Hey, appreciate it, man. Much love to you, and one love. Take care, man.
You got it, baby. Take care. So, big thanks to Jeremy Wilson for jumping on in the stream. I'm still going to keep it going for a little bit. We'll see if I could get somebody else on to join us. But wow, that was really great to have somebody there who's got his boots on the ground at the event to kind of bring things up. I don't know who's in the chat right now, but if you have any questions you want to go back and forth on, we also have Bellator going on right now with Danny Sabatello really trying to implement his wrestling on Breno, but it's not really working out for him right now. And I got to say that this is going to pose for a little bit of issues for Danny Sabatello if he's not able to get his striking together, because his grappling together, because I got to be real with you, the striking isn't necessarily there at all. So we'll see what happens. I'm not really sure, but Bellator really is nailing it on the head with getting two events back to back in Hawaii. You're looking at the UFC, and it's like these guys can't even put together one event. They're borching and complaining that they can't get anything popping. But then on the flip side, you turn around and you have Bellator, who's putting on back-to-back events in Hawaii. It's like, come on now, like, why can't we get Max Holloway in Hawaii? I think that would be crazy, especially if maybe perhaps Volkanovski wins and vacates the belt. And then maybe we get Yair versus Holloway for the vacant belt, or Yair wins, and I don't know, the UFC kind of screws him and makes him defend the title in Hawaii. That could be a possibility too. Abus Magomedov already getting a top 10 opponent in a main event after one UFC win. Who's he getting again? Does anybody know who he's getting? It's not Bryce Mitchell, right? What weight class is this? Strickland. Yeah, well, I was surprised by that too, to be honest. I have no idea why Strickland took this fight. Strickland is hot right now, man. He's a hot commodity with a big name and a marketable fighter. He could easily be in a main event. He had a close fight against Cannonier. I don't have any reason as to why he took this fight. I mean, it's too bad that he's on like such a losing streak, because, then he probably could have maybe gotten the fight against like a Robert Whittaker type or the Dracus Duplessis fight. But it's good that Duplessis and Whittaker are actually going to fight each other. Let's take a look at the rankings here. Who do you think that you would have liked Strickland to fight, though? Because I don't really know what would have really been left for him, but I was a little bit shocked by him taking this matchup. I thought that at this point, with Strickland taking some losses, that he at least would have want to have fought some guys with a little bit some more notoriety, etc. Okay. Yeah. Let's see the rankings here now, boys. Also, he's not on a losing streak. He beat Imamov in January. Yes, 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 yes. You're right. You're right. You're right. Yes, he beat Imamov for sure. I mean, like, that's why, like, a part of me also would have been like, yo, I would have loved to see Strickland versus Kelvin Gastelum. That would have been sick too. But let's see here. We could have saw Sean Strickland versus Roman Delice, Sean Strickland, I guess, versus Vittori, Sean Strickland versus Brendan Allen. I don't know. I would have taken the Sean Strickland versus Andre Muniz. Like, I just think there were so many fights that he could have taken instead of this one, but I guess it just kind of comes down to as well how the schedules lined up for people. But I think that Strickland versus, I believe Strickland fought for Vittori, but I think Strickland versus Delice would have been cool. But more importantly, I think that Strickland moving down a little bit to fight maybe Muniz or Brendan Allen, even though they're 13 and 14th, I think those were really good matchups. And, you know, even though they're below Imamov again, it's like, all right, so fuck it. They should have given him Kelvin Gastelum. That would have been cool. But I wouldn't have taken this matchup against Abu. No chance. So what are we thinking? We got any topics to talk about? You know what? We've gone for 50 minutes. I'm going to tune out there. Big thanks to everybody tuning in. It's about our 5th stream, I believe. I'm loving it because we're having guests on and we're able to, you know, just juke and jive. And I think that a lot of people are enjoying me not just getting into like full-blown broadcast mode and being able to show more sides of myself and have conversations with people, be a little bit of an interviewer and a host, but also bring my analysis and my recap, but also be able to juke and jive and have some fun. So I appreciate it. Thanks to you all for tuning in. Hit that subscribe button. You know, share a couple of stories on IG. Tell your friends, tell your grandmother, tell Santa Claus, whatever you need to do. It's the Adam Caplan MMA show. We're out, baby.